Justin A.W. Blair here with another YouTube video, a part of my ongoing series, reading the Deep Space Nine novels from the 1990s. This is The Tempest by Susan Wright. It is number 19 in the series. Now, this book is startling in how absolutely, well, let me retract. Let me slow down. Let me calm it down because I am in a rage, a station rage. I don't like long commercials in the middle of a YouTube video, so I'll get to the point quick. My own novel written by me, Justin A.W. Blair, entitled The Haunt on the Island of Esmer, is out, available on Amazon. You can buy it in ebook or paperback format. It is inspired by Malazan, A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Black Company. Epic novels in that vein. Take a moment, check it out. Let's test some things out. Let's position ourselves where we're at in the novels and how that relates to where we're at in the show. My opinion about Deep Space Nine is that while there are great and good episodes in the midway portion and latter portion of the show, I actually prefer and like the first couple of seasons because the episodes weren't dedicated to following the long arc of the Dominion War. So they could do more standalone episodes. Now, number 19 here, we're at the point where the war is on with the Dominion, and the Klingons have broken the peace treaty with the Federation. Now, this book's main POV, there are two main POVs. Worf, so Worf has joined the Deep Space Nine station, and Keiko O'Brian. Keiko O'Brian. Those are the two POVs, main POVs. Susan Wright decided to serve us up. Now, I'm going to say something positive first, which is that the Worf POV is written tight. It's written well. It sounds like Worf. The characterization is spot on, actually. Very well done. Now, I'm going to say something negative. The characterization of Keiko O'Brian is tight, and it's spot on, and it's written exactly how the character is written in the show. The problem is that the Keiko O'Brian character is extraordinarily, excruciatingly boring in almost every facet. And that is played out in the 280 some odd pages of this book in excruciating detail. Why do I dislike Keiko O'Brian? Listen. I'm a Miles O'Brien respecter. I like Chief O'Brien, the Chief. Big fan. And I feel like Keiko is unfair to the character many times throughout the show and in this book. Basically, this book has plot A, plot B, plot C. B and C plot lines are tied together, and I'm making a distinction where there may not need to be any. But there is a slight Odo POV. Now, I want to set out for you what broadly happens here. Plot A is something like giant plasma energy storm headed towards the station. It has wrecked some ships, and that's a problem. And Keiko O'Brian is back on the station. She's down in Bajor normally. She's bored, so Miles O'Brien, in a desperate attempt to make her stop bothering him, gives her some data, which she's not even supposed to have. And she brilliantly decides that the plasma storm is actually reacting and acting somewhat like a living organism. Okay. Plot A. Keiko O'Brien's going to solve the plasma energy storm, along with Dax. Plot B is Worf has a run-in through a security measure with this alien race called the Satars, which are described as many alien races are, kind of just as small and furry, and they are not slaves, but they are part of the Klingon Empire and are treated poorly by the Klingons. So A ship has been fired on as the plasma storm is moving towards Deep Space Nine, and this is kind of a mystery. Now, that's plot B. Plot C is, and I'm not joking, Odo babysits Keiko O'Brian and Miles O'Brien's child. Surprisingly, that's probably the most fun part of this book. It's related to the Worf POV because it is. Don't worry about it. Why exactly? Mainly because when Worf checks in, it's oftentimes seen through his eyes, even though Odo has his own POV. So there's a few things that happen here. For some reason, Keiko O'Brian brings this idea that the plasma storm seems to act like an organism to Sisko, and Sisko puts her on a runabout with Science Officer Dax to head straight into the storm. Number one, she's a civilian, so that probably wouldn't occur. And, number two, this is supposedly a very dangerous scenario. According to all the data, the ships are locked down. No one can get in or off the station, but they throw Keiko O'Brian into space with Dax. And personally, I think it's because everyone just wants to get rid of Keiko O'Brian. So maybe it's a extraordinarily smart idea on the part of Sisko. He's like, let's launch her into space, into the plasma storm. I have never in my life, and did not think it could be possible, that this much technobabble could be written page after page. Now, look, we all know what technobabble is within the Star Trek universe. It's oftentimes just, hey, the tachyon particles are doing a wave function, and that implies something. Usually it's just words to get us moving through a plot point. I'm going to say this. Maybe Susan Wright is some expert on radiation and plasma storms. And I guess I want to give her credit because there are portions of this book, not just one, several portions of this book where it's not just a paragraph, it's not just a few paragraphs, it's not just a page, it's page after page of technobabble, what I assume is technobabble, describing plasma storms. It's done so babbly-ish that it does fool me, a common man, a non-scientist, into thinking that maybe Susan Wright knows something about plasma storms. So in that sense, it's kind of a win, but no one wants to read that at all. Technobabble is something that is used in Star Trek and oftentimes in science fiction franchises as really kind of an obscuring technique to move something forward in a world that is not completely rounded out in a future where there is science which we have not developed and which we do not know. Now, granted, sometimes it's speculative in nature in the sense that it's suggesting something that has the technobabble has a internal coherence of sorts and makes sense within itself. And Star Trek is noted for that in many ways because there are a lot of smart engineers and scientists who enjoy the franchise and have also injected in the scripts, I think, oftentimes coherence to all these ideas. But it is extraordinarily, extraordinarily boring, and it does not serve the function of the story at all. That is the thing. Technobabble sometimes serves a function of a story by explaining why something is happening, which is a plot point which we need to get through, or it can even be a major plot point. It could be a time travel issue. It could be a episode where people are phasing in and out. It could be some sort of unexplained thing, which we're going to use technobabble to move through the story, to get us across, but it is almost never considered interesting by itself. Because it's different than the high concept of a science fiction plot point. So time travel as a plot point or plot idea can be very interesting, can be wonderful. I'm reading right now a novel called Eye of Cat by Zelazny. There's time travel in it. It's very, very interesting. It's a bad move when you have to resort to technobabble in order to explain some point of, say, time travel to get you through a story. You actually don't really want to do that unless you're doing hard science fiction and you are basically putting your theory of time travel in a fictional book and using it as a way to tell people your theory about time travel. There are some other cases where it can work. This, I mean, is startling how an editor allowed this to go through. Now, as I'm reading this book, I'm fantasizing myself because I'm so bored on this runabout with Keiko O'Brian and Dax. Dax is I feel bad for her this time. She is both listening to the technobabble from Keiko O'Brian, who's suddenly an expert on plasma storms, and also listening to Keiko O'Brian's complaints about her life and marriage. Because of course we get that from Keiko O'Brian. And it's just a lot of kind of generalized anxiety about her place in the world or something, and marriage and job and all that stuff. That's fine. It essentially, this entire, and this is half the book, is just a lot of women moments between Dax and Keiko. And then at some point, even the author makes Dax kind of do these asides and slightly snippy sayings when she gets tired of Keiko O'Brian. And then, not long after that, they plunge into the plasma storm. And Dax, I suppose, is into this because instead of having to listen to Keiko O'Brian continue to talk, she basically starts blacking out from radiation, some sort of radiation that also just affects trills worse or something. And Keiko O'Brian's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. I think at this point, Dax is just like, no, I want to do this because I don't have to remember any of this. And so Dax just goes through this series of terrible, like non-harmful apparently, but also harmful blackouts and seizures while they're gathering data about this. And here is the problem. The problem with plot A and plot B. Nothing resolves itself. They just go on this expedition and they do this and they come back, and then there's some more technobabble about something about a deflector array on the station that they can use to move to tell the plasma storm to move away from it. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it. Now, let's go to the other plot briefly. Worf has this thing with, I don't even want to describe this in detail because maybe you'll want to read the book and it doesn't matter. It is another thing that doesn't resolve itself. There's a mystery set out of who fired on the ship, but that's then kind of deemed somewhat unimportant in the wake of the plasma storm, and this is not ever really resolved. So instead, it's just this alien that is mean to Worf, and then Worf kind of tolerates it, but also puts this alien in jail at some point. And then another alien that is related to that alien, or the captain of that alien, and he's kind of like, hey, you should let her out of jail. And then they just do. A couple of small things about this. And again, my energy wanes just even discussing this book. I mean, I don't understand why or how this was really made. Now, the writing itself isn't poor. Again, this is where an editor should come in. The writing is fine. An editor should have came in and say, hey, we don't need this. This is not good. Gently excise many pages of this book and maybe make some suggestions. I really believe that the authors of all of these Deep Space Nine books just simply did not get the editing that they needed, and that the end product in many cases is extraordinarily odd. Anyway, before Keiko sets out on this plasma journey, she has to find someone to take care of her child, Molly O'Brien, who's throwing temper tantrums about ponies. And here's the thing about Star Trek, which is, it's supposedly this civilization, this time, especially in the Federation, where no one lacks for anything. But for some reason, they don't have any childcare, I guess, on Deep Space Nine. So Keiko O'Brian can't find anyone to watch her kids, so she just leaves her in basically the jail with Odo, which is, look, Keiko, maybe not a great move. Maybe not a great move. So, or maybe it's Miles O'Brien that does that. Either way, I'm going to blame Keiko. That doesn't make sense. It seems like that would be something that the Federation would have under control in this world of plenty, but regardless. There's some smaller things like that. At one point, Miles O'Brien, he's really tired and overworked, which is always what we get from that character. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go set up cots because all these people have come in on the station and they need places to sleep. Like, He's the chief engineer. I'm pretty sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Federation people on Deep Space Nine. I remember once the population's like 9,000 or something. I don't know. Like, why is the chief engineer folding out cots? That doesn't make any sense. And then the other thing is, so then they're like, oh yeah, we don't have any room for anybody, and they put this alien that Worf already has this problem with in his quarters, and like he's not there. So I think they just get let in. That's insane. And his computer system is basically hacked while he lets these people stand there. Like, look, and they're only here for like a day or something. Like, just sleep on the floor in the hallway. It's totally insane to put people that you've not vetted in the quarters of officers of the station. Like, that doesn't seem like that would actually happen. Another small thing, but it actually bothers me a lot. This is the most boring book I've ever read in the series. I mean, there are more poorly written books. That is true. There are more outlandish plots in books. True. There are bigger misses in terms of the characterization of alien races, which we never see again. This is true. However, this was an actual grind to get through. Basically, nothing happens, and what does happen is just extraordinarily boring. Again, in my notes, the second time I just have, this is the worst book I've ever read in this series. Every single plot line is flat, boring, doesn't take a single interesting turn. The living plasma thing is solved by Technobabble. Odo babysits, and basically there's no resolution to the Worf thing at all, except he kind of lets a criminal go because he feels bad for her. This book should not have been allowed to reach publication in the form that it is in. I don't understand at this point, it's number 19, what was happening with the editors. I don't blame the author particularly, because again, it's not really that it's written poorly. Someone needed to come in and say, hey, there are story issues. There are things we need to do to change this a little bit to move it forward. There's really the plasma thing comes and goes. There's no sense of actual imminent danger because, of course, Deep Space Nine, the station, isn't going to get destroyed by the plasma storm. We know that. Again, this is one of my problems with these types of plots in books and even in the series, where there's no stakes to it, because I know that, they're not going to let an author of a Deep Space Nine pocketbook kill major characters or really do much of anything. So that's where I think these plots often get things wrong, where they try to up the stakes, but we know ahead of time it is impossible for those to ever be concluded in some sort of surprising or interesting way. Whoever greenlit this book should be fired. That's the last sentence I have written in my notes. Well, it's too late for that. This was published in the 1990s. And, Susan Wright has apparently written some other Star Trek books. I wouldn't even necessarily avoid them just based on her name, even though I would be very curious to know if an editor got her moving through something like an actual compelling and interesting story. That would be wonderful. I am going to conclude it. I am going to sign off. Hopefully that goes through the plasma storm. Hopefully that goes through Keiko O'Brian's ennui about being a successful scientist, botanist, mother who has a husband that is, by all accounts, a relatively good dude. She's still mad. There's a couple moments, very Keiko moments, 90s Keiko Japanese moments where she's like, yeah, I do tea ceremonies. Oh, there's a point where she's complaining to Dax that her husband O'Brien doesn't like to do no Japanese no theater plays with her. So it's kind of funny because like they put every single stereotypical Japanese thing on Keiko O'Brian, which is amusing to me. But anyway, yeah, this talk of bonsai trees. It's just the most boring. She's the most boring person ever created. It's almost very realistic as a character. There is a kind of realism to that, which I can admire in a strange way. Also, Keiko O'Brian doesn't like Dabo girls. I completely reject that. It just really shows she has no sense of fun at all. that's all I'm going to say. I had some more harsh things to say, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I am going to say, Justin A.W. Blair, watch out for the next video. I'm going to bring the Station Rage to the next video, and I hope you will enjoy it. Like and subscribe. Like this video, even if you don't like the book, even if you don't like the video, do it anyway.